Question 27, final question of this paper. Volume of a pyramid is a third times the area of the base times the perpendicular height. VABCD is a rectangular based pyramid with a volume of 336 meters cubed. This is important. X is the center of the horizontal base directly below V. Work out the angle between VB, so VB is this one, and the base, which is the rectangular base at the bottom. So it's this angle here I'm ultimately trying to find. It's a 6-mark question, so I'm not going to be able to get there straight away. So let's start off with what we're told with first of all. So the first thing it says is the fact that the volume is 336. So whenever they give you a fact like that in the exams, they might say the mean is 42, or in this case the volume is 336. You need to then think to yourself, right, how have they got that answer? So very helpful, very kindly they've given you this formula here. So we can say that the volume of the pyramid, so that's a third times the area of the base multiplied by the perpendicular height equals 336. Okay, and by doing that we can then start to work out any information that we might need for this question. So for example, the area of the base, because I know the length and width of this rectangular base, I can see what the area is going to be. So 14 times 8 is 112. Okay, so I know that the area of the base is 112. And I can put this into my formula. So I can say that a third times 112 times the perpendicular height equals 336. Okay, now the perpendicular height I'm not told, but it's the only thing that's in this equation that I don't know, so I can solve it like an equation. So a third times 112, so I could do 112 times a third, or could divide it by 3. That gives me 37 and a third. So 37 and a third times the perpendicular height equals 336. The other way I could have done this, which would probably be a bit neater to be honest, is just to times both sides by 3. So that would have left me with 112 times the perpendicular height equals 3 lots of 336, which is 1008. So I could have written it like that. So now I want to find out the perpendicular height. So just like solving an equation, we don't want this bit. It's times, so we need to do the opposite. So we have to divide both sides by 37 and a third. Okay, because it's already in my calculator. I'm just going to type in at least it was in my calculator. Right, I'm now going to type in 136 divided by that by the answer, and that gives me 9. So the perpendicular height equals 9. So we're dealing with meters, so we can write that on 9 meters. Okay, so we're getting there with this question. Now, if you think about it, this line here, it's X is the center, and V is directly below, or V is directly above X. Okay, so the angle between this line here and the base itself is going to be a right angle. So, I mean, if I demonstrate that with this set square here, if you imagine, this is in the center of my pyramid, you can see that if this is V up here, the angle formed from this line here to the base would have to be a right angle. Okay, so therefore we've got a right angle triangle here, and we can then therefore think about using SOHCAHTOA, okay, because SOHCAHTOA could be used in right angle triangles. So with SOHCAHTOA, we're going to need to label our side. So that's the angle that we want to find out, so that's the one we're interested in. So therefore I can label the opposite side as the opposite. The side opposite the right angle is known as the hypotenuse, and the last side is always the adjacent. I need to have more information than this, because with SOHCAHTOA, I need to have either a side length and an angle, or I'm going to need to have two side lengths. Now, because I'm trying to find the angle, I'm going to need to have two side lengths. So again, before we get to that stage, we need to ask ourselves, is there anything else we can do to find out one of the side lengths? Now, we're told that x is in the center of the base. Therefore, if this is 14, this distance here must be 7. And if this distance here is 8, the distance up to this point here must be 4. So actually I can use Pythagoras here. So if I now make a triangle on the base, and I've labelled this 7 and I've labelled this 4, I can use Pythagoras first of all to work out what this is going to be. So 4 squared is 16. This is the longest side. That's my right angle there, look. So that's my longest side. It's the opposite of the right angle. So 4 squared add 7 squared. That gives me 65. And then I then need to take the square root of that. Now, I don't really want to take the square root of 65, because I know, because it's not a square number, it's going to be a whole decimal. And because I'm still working with this, I want to keep my answers as exact as possible. So I'm going to leave it there and just write root 65. So I've now got two sides and I want to find the angle. So in terms of SOHCAHTOA, we know that the opposite, we know the adjacent now because we know it's root 65. The hypotenuse we don't know. So we want to think about SOHCAHTOA. We want to think about a equation that doesn't have the hypotenuse in it, because we don't know how long that is. So we don't want that one, we don't want that one, we're going to have to use TOA. Okay, so let's draw out our triangle for TOA. So TOA, really important that you write it out in this order, because if the letters are the other way around, it won't work. We need to remember that the S, C, and T for on SOHCAH and TOA represents the angle. So I'm going to write tan of the angle, and I'm going to call that theta. Okay, so tan of the angle equals the opposite divided by the adjacent. So I always read top down. The opposite was 9 meters. This was root 65. Now don't worry about the fact that they look different, because root 65, remember, is just a decimal. So that's fine. So I can write 9 over root 65. And if I work that out on my calculator, I get 1.116312. Now remember, that's what tan theta is, so that's not my angle. To work out my angle, I need to then take the inverse. So inverse tan of that 9 over root 65, so root of my last answer, and that then gives me 48.1458 ... And I'm going to round this off to 3 significant figures, so that then takes me to 48.1 degrees. Okay, and that then gives you your 6 marks.